Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. And in front of me this morning is former Chicago Tribune columnist John Cass, who you can now find at johncassnews.com. Also his podcast, The Chicago Way.
Thanks for finding me, everybody. Need you.
Yeah.
Love you.
Yeah. We need you, your voice in Chicago, too. One of the lonely ones in the wilderness. Morning consult poll. Among voters of all parties, 53% of Americans now support the January 6th commission, but that's down from 66% back in June. So this was taken after last week's Star Chamber proceeding with those 4 Capitol Hill and D.C. Metro officers.
Don't forget Kinzinger crying.
I won't forget.
Can't forget that.
No, we'll not forget the waterworks. So that's a significant drop, of course, being driven by Democrat partisans. 4 out of 5 Democrats in favor. Only 1 in 4 Republicans in favor, and half of independents.
Why is that?
Maybe people were giving the D.C. political ruling class the benefit of the doubt. I don't know why they would, but maybe they were say, okay, well, what happened on January 6th was not good, not appropriate, and an investigation into it to answer unanswered questions that should be answered. Okay, let's see how they do. And then you saw the partisan spectacle that it was, and maybe I'm not so interested in it anymore if it's not going to be serious.
They know what it's about. It's about weaponizing that issue to drive Republicans further to the right and further away from mainstream. This is really an undemocratic and dangerous tactic.
Well, Michael Farone, who's one of the officers who testified and has been a staple on CNN, he went on with his buddy Don Lemon to, and they aired this call that he got that was reported last week. Threatening call. Michael Farone receives threatening calls. He's under, death threats. The proverbial, I've received death threats, and you never really hear any evidence to support the claim, but you cast the person who's describing them in the victim status, which is what they seek.
Did Scalise get a death threatening call before he was shot by a lefty?
Yeah, I think the shooting was threatening enough. Farone with Don Lemon breathlessly playing this call from ostensibly a Trump supporter that calls Officer Farone names, but threatening call, his life in danger.
Yeah, this is from Michael Farone, Metropolitan Police Officer. You're on trial right now, lying, and you want an Emmy, an Oscar? What are you trying to go for here? You're so full of shit, you little f***er. You're a little man. I can slap you up the side of your head with a backhand and knock you out, you little You're a punk. You're a lying. How about all that scummy black fucking scum for 2 years, destroying our cities and burning them and stealing all that out of the stores and everything? How about that, and assaulting cops and killing people? How about that, you f***er? That was shit on the goddamn Capitol. I wish they would have killed all you scumbags, because you people are scum. They stole the election from Trump, and you know that, you scumbag. And you fucking, too bad you didn't beat the shit out of you more. You're a piece of shit. You're a little you fucking scumbag.
I mean, I get emails like that daily.
I have trolls like that.
Yeah.
But they're all in their mommy's basement, just like that guy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is not a defense of the call, but this is presented on CNN breathlessly. This is a solemn occasion.
Right.
Some goofball who's all worked up goes on an ad hominem tirade, and our democracy hangs in the balance.
But is that
come on?
So is that that's what you use as an excuse for what they're doing? When you have people like this, when you drive them, when you kick people to the margins of culture and society, this is what happens.
Well, the other thing, too, with it's Farone is his name, Farone, and the others who testified, there's a lot of political statements in their testimony. That wasn't just law enforcement officers recounting what occurred, presenting factual evidence, and for whatever determination or report that would be forthcoming. A lot of political statements, a lot of statements that were erroneous. So one of the officers who made with the waterworks that pointed out that Aquilino guy talking about he's still waiting for people who decried athletes who kneel before the flag. He's still waiting for them to decry those people that engage in violence, breach the Capitol, and so forth. What are you talking about?
I decried them.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
I decried them.
The whole point about this is they're making a straw man argument.
Yes.
They're making an argument in the face of no one who disagrees that what happened at the Capitol was a desecration. Oh, was it so far as an insurrection? Did they almost topple the republic? No, of course not.
You mean the guy with the horns?
Yeah,
The horns
and is everybody similarly situated? All 75 million people who voted for Trump, all the thousands, tens of thousands of people that were there on that day, are they in the same camp as the QAnon shaman? No, that's not true either. But we can't be adults about this stuff anymore. For more on this, let's go to Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano for a weekly confab, VP of the Catherine and Shelby Cullum Davis Institute for International Studies at the Heritage Foundation, and author of the recently released Brutal War, Jungle Fighting in Papua New Guinea, 1942. Jim, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good to be with you. You know, this just reminds me of there's so many issues which are just like the one you just framed, where reasonable people might agree on the substance of the policy, whether it's this or changing the name of bases, which are named after military bases or named after Confederate officers, or go on and on and on. And what's absent, though, is that's not what the debate is about. These have been framed as political power plays, and January 6th is a very clear example of that. They don't care about the truth. They're doing this because they see this as an opportunity to bash other people and increase their political power. But they want to frame the issue because they want you to defend something in which, of course, you have no interest in defending. This is not good democracy. It's not good dialogue,
exactly.
And it's not the way to help people understand what's going on in the world. It's just playing politics with whatever, from kneeling in front of the flag to dancing in your shaman costume.
But even Jim, even more so than Megan Rapinoe's ridiculous antics. This, to me, is about giving license to pundits of the left to bash the hell out of 75 million Americans. And I wonder what the masters of culture, who some of whom have studied history, think about how it ends.
Well,
because to me it ends badly.
How it ends is what we're seeing. We don't know how it ends because we can't know the future. But what we are seeing is confidence in the institutions are declining because people are seeing the institutions as illegitimate, whether it is the university structure or mainstream media or popular culture like television and films or artists or athletes. And you can tell this because the progressives have tried this strategy on so many issues, but you walk down the line of kind of the dozen or so mainstream issues that Americans really care about: open borders, culture theory, wokeism, all these issues. The administration is completely underwater, and the left is completely underwater. Even this commission, where not only support for the commission are declining, but if you ask people and survey them, they said, well, they would be much more interested in seeing people investigate the BLM Antifa riots than they would on the Hill. So what you're actually seeing is Americans in the polls are reacting negatively to these things, and their confidence in the institutions which are promoting them are actually declining. Unfortunately, this even affects things like the U.S. military, which has been widely regarded as the most respected institution in the country for decades. And because of all the woke and the political policies and playing politics with the military, you see confidence in the U.S. military as an institution beginning to decline.
Yeah, well, General Austin in his mask with his memorandums about social distancing doesn't inspire a lot of confidence about, as you've talked about on this show before, the senior leadership of the armed forces.
Right, but again, it's the same thing. They frame this as, what do you mean? You wouldn't want to go after extremists in the armed forces? You don't want to go after racism in the armed forces? You don't want to go after sexual violence in the armed forces? And of course the answer is no, we don't want to tolerate any of those things. But that's not why you're there. You are there to push a political agenda. You're not there to make these institutions better and stronger and better serve the American people. One is, people get that. And two is, the institutions that the left uses to push these, they're increasingly not seen as credible by many Americans.
Well, let's talk about another of those institutions, public health agencies, starting with the CDC. And here's what Dr. Rochelle Walensky had to say to Brett Baer on Friday night about whether the hot spots for the Delta variant, like along the border, whether perhaps migrants coming over from the southern border from a variety of countries that are unvaccinated, that are testing positive for COVID, whether they have something to do in contributing to that spike.
Do you know how the surge of illegal immigrants with COVID is affecting the overall rate? You know, it sounds like the percentages down there on the border are astronomical.
Yeah, you know, I would say that the percentages in the southern part of this country are really quite high, and I don't necessarily think we can attribute all of that to what's going on at the southern border. I think what we really need to do is spend our time getting our communities vaccinated, to getting our individuals vaccinated to prevent disease from transmitting in our communities.
You know, it's really interesting, Jim. Dr. Walensky has no real interest in getting any specific information about migrants at the border, about kids in classrooms. She just likes to make general statements about threats or lack or non-threats, depending on sort of the posture of the administration with respect to those topics.
Okay, yeah, we have had actually COVID hotspots in states with low vaccination rates. We actually also have COVID hotspots in cities with high vaccination rates. Mm-hmm. So, and the other thing is okay, let's assume that, yeah, if you have low vaccination rates, you have a community that's more potentially open to being a hotspot. Well, why would you be dumping people that you know have COVID into that community? And the one thing we know is, for a fact, is we've had over a million people walk into this country. None of them have had proper health screening. None of them have proper health care. We know that COVID is rampant throughout Latin America. We know that COVID is rampant throughout the illegal population migrating to the United States. And we have the U.S. government consciously dumping these people in communities all over the United States, and they're not vaccinated. Many of them have not been tested. We know that none of them are likely to go and get proper health care. And to just dismiss that as, well, but that's, you know, as a non-factor in the COVID uptick, to me seems, from a scientist, to just dismiss that out of hand, that just seems like you're playing politics. And I think that's a great example of how people are not trusting the institutions themselves. So, you know, this is kind of a glass half filled, glass half empty. On the one hand, Americans are using their common sense and coming to much better conclusions than they're getting from these institutions that are supposed to be informing them. On the other hand, these institutions are failing us. So where does that take us as a nation? That's a great question.
He is Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano, VP of the Catherine and Shelby Cullom Davis Institute for International Studies at Heritage and author of the recently released Brutal War, Jungle Fighting in Papua New Guinea, 1942. Jim, thanks as always.
Thanks for having me.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Balance of Nature's fruits and vegetables in a capsule, changing the world one life at a time.
You know, ever since I started taking it, I've really noticed a change in just how I feel. I feel really great all the time. You know how sometimes in the afternoon when you've been working, you just kind of feel drained or whatnot? Well, with taking the Balance of Nature, I don't